Let's get straight into it. It's politics now. Politics as you want to see it discussed and thrashed out. Our political editor, Sunday Agenda host Andrew Clennell with me, Ash Gillen, my fellow afternoon agenda host, and Kieran Gilbert, of course. If you turn on Sky, basically on a sitting day, Kieran, you won't be able to avoid your good self.
That's it. Nice to be back.
Yeah, great to have you all here. Look, let's just thrash out stage three. So we've got the coalition's position, and we saw arguments tested there in question time, Ash. We're basically set for another election on stage three, or at least part of it, depending on what the coalition does down the track. But they made a decision, no rollback and no big surprise.
Yeah, so set the scene for the next election for a fight of income tax cuts. And we have also seen that it's probably going to be setting the scene for a lot of scare campaigns along with that as we go. We saw from the questions in question time there, as you would expect, what are you going to do about the family home? We can expect to hear a lot more about that. But the coalition obviously has a lot more work to do. As Peter Dutton said in his news conference earlier today, they need to find about $9 billion a year if they're going to add on their own plans as well as implementing what the changes are with stage three tax cuts. So there's a lot of money to find there, and how to pay for it's going to be the big question. Yeah,
almost the easy decision was we won't roll back, but how much of it or when? It might be a timing issue. You can put, they might stagger it again, but then again, they don't want to put it too far in the future, because they tried that on stage three and Labor ended up swooping in and cutting their lunch, I guess.
Well, the government's won the battle here, and you saw that from question time. It's whether or not they win the war. And I've got a suggestion for the opposition. I think they should reinstate the stage three tax cuts at the election, and I think they should means test the NDIS to pay for it. And that way you're not giving the top end everything, and you're getting yourself some revenue to pay for it. I reckon that's the way to go. They need some sort of clever policy like that, in my opinion, but I was quite surprised there. There were no questions on the broken promise. I was stunned, in fact, and I think that shows you the internal polling for the Liberals is showing what the news poll is showing. I think the government's in the box seat. And Dunkley, I've certainly heard that from Labor sources. The government has won the battle on this in terms of the broken promise, which is quite spectacular, because when was the last time in politics you saw a government take $4,500 a year off taxpayers into perpetuity and not lose any skin in terms of the polls, indeed the polls having them in an election-winning position? It's a Houdini-like act here from Albanese and Chalmers. Let's see if the broken promise costs them down the track, if there's another gaffe, if there's another problem after the voice. And I have to say, Anthony Albanese, in question time, Tom, he has his mojo back. He has his confidence back in a way he has not had since it became clear the voice was going down, which was around September last year.
They can't fake, can they, politicians and prime ministers feeling good? They tried to, but they can't. On the solution, I think the other interesting thing that we keep hearing from the coalition, Kieran, is $28 billion. They've got that basically in the bank over 10 years. So whatever the affordability issue is, forward estimates is an issue, but 10 years, it's instantly $28 billion cheaper than it would be, because they're saying that's just bracket creep, we'll hand that back.
Yeah, that's true. And so there's a bit of room to move. To pick up on what Andrew said, politicians tell us that they don't read the polls. That's the biggest lie that we hear from politicians when we see a boost to morale. It's all about the poll. And it's not just about the news poll. My mail on the Labor internal polling says that not only are they doing better in the regions than the cities off this tax change, but also, and this is something we discussed the other day, you saw the news poll, 62% of people back the tax change. Only 38% think they're doing better off. The people that I've spoken to within Labor believe there is some more upside for them in the polling. That 38, in July,
they'll feel they
once
are
you nudge
actually better
38 to 50 to 60%, once you tell people how much better they're doing and they get it and they see it, they think there's more upside in this polling.
That's why once the tax cut actually hits pay packets in July.
Not just that. Not
it's
just
not
that.
Theoretical,
no, also explaining to them what they're going to get. Only 38% think they're doing better off. Actually, it's upwards of 80% taxpayers.
So that's what I mean.
That's why Anthony Albanese looks like Fred Astaire today in question time.
What I'm getting at is it's beyond explaining. It's there, the money's there. So you don't have to explain if it lands in their pay packet. They do the calculation. Sorry, Ash.
Well, also, I think they're just relieved, because this was a huge gamble for the government and a huge gamble personally for Anthony Albanese after he'd had a bit of a rough time with the voice last year, and they think it's paid off. As you say, the longer term, we'll have to see how the scare campaigns play out when we get close to an election. That really ramps up from the opposition. But he was rejuvenated in question time today. He had a lot of energy. We saw a bit of the old fighter Albo, I thought as well, this morning when he was daring the opposition to vote against the tax cuts, when we know that they couldn't do that, the news poll made that very clear, you can't vote against tax cuts, but daring them like that, it sort of changed the tone of the debate. They've been trying to take the high ground of this is the greater good, et cetera, and it sort of moved it a bit lower, and the wedging politics making it a bit more blatant on that front.
Just letting our viewers know. So we're standing by to go to the RBA in about 5 minutes' time. The Governor, for the first time, will hold a full media conference after a rates decision. We did hear a bit from Phil Lowe during COVID, of course, but this is going to be the new norm. Decision handed down, detailed statement, and then taking questions. Now, what's interesting about this as well is the information ahead of time. So we're used to sifting through the tea leaves, right, and trying to figure out what this word means. I might get our producer pull up what we have now on what the RBA is actually assuming will happen re-rate. So this is not sifting through the tea leaves. This is not a guarantee, but they're now expecting rates actually to be lower by the end of the year, all the way down to 3.9%. So a reminder that they're at 4.35% now. These are assumptions the RBA is assuming will happen here. December, you can see 3.9, June 3.6, out to June 2026. Now, this is not financial advice, but this is now the assumption. So this will be a big part of the questioning, I'm sure, Ash, and this will have the attention of mortgage holders and politicians across the country. And
in those notes, fascinating to see that when you're looking at inflation, they're not expecting it to get back to that comfortable middle ground of the target band between 2 and 3% until mid-2026, and then not below 3% for another 18 months. And importantly, they're saying increases cannot be ruled out. And I think a lot of mortgage holders will be really taking note of that point, because that's the expectation, that we're only heading one way and that way is down. But saying that you're not going to rule it out, there's a bit of expectation management going on there too.
Totally. And that's about trying to drive consumer behaviour. And who wouldn't cover yourself like that if you had an inflation rate in the fours?
Yeah.
So, and remember, Michelle Bullock would know full well how Phil Lowe stuffed up on this.
Front row seat.
So that's like, I don't want to do a Phil Lowe here. So I'm not that concerned by that as a person with a mortgage.
You're not concerned by
I'm interested in what you've dug up, which is this table in the middle of it all, which shows, that they're actually predicting they're going down December 2024. I mean, that's the headline you found there, Tom.
Yeah, albeit they don't want consumers to focus on that, because then maybe...
Well, that's why you found it this table at the back of the thing.
You're a hero, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a pretty good way to steer it.
Let's get a view from you, the viewers, first of all, on this. After the RBA decision was handed down, this was Julia Bradley out in Sydney today, getting the view of people on the RBA decision that's been handed down, and I guess where rates are going as well.
I think it's a good move. Petrol prices been going down quite a bit, so that feed through lower inflation.
I think it's a good decision considering the cost of living at the moment.
There's no doubt after COVID it's been a little on the higher side, but let's see, hope things stabilise soon.
I'm a homeowner and I do feel the pinch, so it's definitely a good call.
I was looking to invest, but I've not been able to with the rates being so high. That's why I'm looking forward to the rates getting cut.
I haven't been happy with the changes to the stage 3 tax cuts, which I think will probably increase inflation as well. And I think, I'm just hoping that interest rates keep on going down. But
So obviously repeating the decision, rates on hold, but where to from here? I get the feeling if there's even one cut, voters will go, OK, what else have you got? So
yeah, exactly.
Pretty tough for the RBA, Kieran. And it's going to be a big focus for Labor. If it's an improving situation, recency bias says we go to the election going, economy's going all right, rates are coming down.
Yeah, the Prime Minister and the Treasurer will be hoping that those numbers that you dug up out of today's report are accurate, and they do eventuate. 3.9% by December, that'd be 2 rate cuts by then, and that would lead into a March election, which we're expecting around that sort of time frame pretty well. Look at that. If that eventuates, there will be Anthony Albanese and Jim Chalmers will be absolutely delighted. We talk a lot about the tax cuts. So many households looking at those numbers even more closely. And as I say, if that trajectory unfolds, that'll be the dream scenario for Team Labor.
Yeah, because it reminds me when the carbon tax came in and there were assumptions on what it might cost, and then petrol dropped about 20 cents, I should say, and it dwarfed any of the costs of it. It's the exteriors to that will have a huge impact on other households. And even if, Ash, you're a higher income household and you suddenly have these rate cuts, which, it's not Labor's credit, but that's what happens these days, right? You blame or you credit the government, suddenly they'll go, my taxes didn't come down as much, but my mortgage is looking a lot better.
Yeah, and it's going to be fascinating to see how the journos in the room at this news conference pin down Michelle Bullock on some of this stuff in this news conference. This is a big moment for her as the new governor holding this news conference. It's really a new era for the RBA in terms of transparency and accountability and all of that. And we know that there's a big amount of financial journos in the room. Apparently, a lot of the economists wanted to head in because they're used to going to these breakfasts or lunches that the RBA governor usually turns up to and takes questions at. And apparently, they've all been asking to go in and been told no. Journalists only in the room, so none of the pointy-end economists in there to throw in some.
Not going to argue with that.
And I've been told it'll go for about half an hour, so plenty of questions will get a run in this press conference. And I think it's a good development. I think it's a good initiative by the government to have the Reserve Bank governor, who basically, really, that board affects our lives. Even if you're a renter, they affect your life in such an important way, as much as politicians. So why not have them accountable or at least explain their decisions? I just hope she's got a better manner than Philip Lowe, who was pretty painful to listen to. Hopefully Michelle Bullock's a bit more engaging.
And Andrew, you touched on this earlier, and I think this is an opportunity for the bank too. It's not just, the little line or the people are going to drill down into a couple of lines of a statement. This gives her the chance to be nuanced. This gives her the chance to explain in detail what they're doing. They want to shift behaviour. Well, now she's got half an hour on national TV to start doing it.
And
it's not easy.
There's a little bit of media prep that would have gone into this too. Sally Cray, former Turnbull advisor in the communications director role. She's no stranger to how politics is and how this is all going to be dissected by all of us afterwards.
At least lets her...
They would have spent a lot of time in media prep.
Yeah, but at least lets her explain the conditions. I mean, if Phil Lowe was doing this, and he didn't do it because he wasn't required to, he wasn't dodging, and I'm not saying that, but he might have been able to go, oh, look, there is a chance we'll have to hike right up if this particular scenario happens or this happens. And when that doesn't happen, we're shocked because we just get the headline bits or, we're sifting through the tea leaves. So
it's not her field of expertise, this sort of media performance. It's a tough ask.
She's done
no matter how much prep
she seems
she's
pretty
done.
Comfortable when I've seen her in a couple of events.
It's different to a presser, isn't it? So
she does a sort of
she could actually make some sort of gaffe. The advice to her would be, don't make a gaffe.
All right.